Some of the most memorable images of the last 20 years have been in adverts. The Guinness Toucan, the Milky Bar Kid and the PG Tips Chimp, to name but three big brands. But according to a new book, companies no longer need to spend millions building their brands. The internet will do it for them and for virtually no money. Now it's about price comparisons, websites, customer reviews and trusted bloggers. So is the era of big brands over? In a moment, a former Saatchi & Saatchi executive takes on one of the book's authors. But first, here's Zoe Conway.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honey bees and snow white turtle doves.
For more than a century, Coca-Cola has been peddling so much more than brown carbonated water. This brand is not going flat anytime soon. But some argue brands are under threat, because ads like this can so easily be drowned out by an ocean of online info. Some even predict that brands could become mere museum exhibits. Back in the day, it was actually quite hard to find out whether a Roberts radio was really any better than a Decca. You could ask the bloke behind the counter or your next door neighbour, but it was hardly perfect information. So people tended to rely on brand names. Now the internet's changed all that. You can go online and read reviews by other customers or experts. And of course you can still ask your neighbour and all your other friends on Facebook. Some argue that the brand is now much less important.
I'm going to mix it up just a little bit today. Going to go ahead and do an unboxing and a review of the ASUS RT-AC 66U dual band wireless.
It was the online techie reviewers that helped ASUS, a Taiwanese company with little name recognition, to become the third biggest seller of tablets in the world.
For users that are really looking to kind of take it to the next level at enabling the best kind of web connection and taking advantage of the cloud.
Because they couldn't rely on brand name, they say they broke through on quality of product and virtual word of mouth.
Introducing the Hyundai Assurance. Now finance.
But it's not just the tech sector. Hyundai say they expect customers to thoroughly research their cars online before they buy. It makes it much harder to hide behind the brand.
80% of the customers who go into a showroom today and buy a car, 80% of them have already gone online. And what that has done in terms of the purchasing of a vehicle, it has changed. About 15 years ago, people would visit 4 dealerships. Today, they visit 1.2 dealerships. And the reason being, that's almost, when they're going in, they've already almost decided to buy that brand. So what they've done the investigation beforehand, and they've done it online.
Not everyone's convinced that all this information is necessarily very informative. In fact, it's overwhelming. The brand, they argue, has never been more important. The marketing industry has always loved to talk about brand loyalty, of nurturing relationships with consumers. But has this talk of monogamy ever been realistic? Haven't customers always been serial adulterers? I mean, take Coke drinkers, the ultimate two-timers. 72% of them also drink Pepsi. So much for fidelity.
Zoe Conway. Well, Rita Clifton is chair of the brand consultancy BrandCap. Emmanuel Rosen is the co-author of a new book, Absolute Value, and that's the one we've been talking about, that argues that the brand's in decline in some sectors, and he joins us from San Francisco. Good evening, both of you. Emmanuel Rosen, I mean, you don't deny that people love brands. They feel a loyalty to brand. They feel an affinity to a brand. It says something about them.
Well, in this book, we're talking about a major shift in consumer decision-making, as you described in the last few minutes. Consumers increasingly rely on reviews from other users, from experts, and whenever they do that, then the affinity to the brand or any emotional connection, by definition, almost play a reduced role. You know, brands are not disappearing. We're not saying that this is the end of brand, but brands will play a reduced role as a quality proxy when people use alternative information sources such as reviews from users or from experts.
Or yeah, from experts. I was going to say, though, Rita, presumably then you can have an unknown brand, but if you get the ear of an expert who then promotes it, is a lot cheaper than spending a lot of money in a huge brand campaign.
It is, absolutely. But I mean, we have this debate every few years that, you know, there's a new social change or a retail change or a technology change, and there's talk about the death of brands.
But there's
or the
never been one
of
like the
brands
internet, has it? There's never been one like the internet.
Well, what's interesting about the internet is that, you know, great brands have grown up out of the internet. So despite the fact that you know, the talk about the internet was brands are dead because it's all going to be exposed, price is going to be laid bare and everything else. But of course we've got Google, we've got Facebook, we've got Amazon. These are some of the world's most valuable brands. Now, what doesn't work anymore is, you know, if you use marketing almost as a way of sort of tarting up a mediocre product and hoping people won't notice.
You mean a mediocre product would be killed stone dead more quickly because of the internet?
Absolutely. At a scale and a speed that will take your breath away. You've got to be a great business and a great brand.
What about what Rita is saying is that actually there are some massive brands now, you know, Google, Amazon, eBay, Apple. These are huge technology brands of the 21st century. Emmanuel.
That's true, but the thing is that the brand equity that these companies have created will play a reduced role in the decision by a customer for his next move. That is, you know, you mentioned Google. Google introduced in 2009 a program called Google Wave. Now, Google had back then incredible goodwill.
I think we've got a technology problem here. Clearly, Google's not running that
not
one.
A great
well, look,
brand
that issue that Emmanuel was raising there about the fact that Google, just what you're saying, I suppose, that Google had this brand called Google Wave, and because it wasn't a successful product, it went down. And I suppose Apple had a problem for a while as well.
Well, it did, but I think Apple is the very best example because in this particular book, they talk about in an almost perfect information world. But of course, people aren't perfect. You know, people are a bit messy. They make decisions to buy brands on not just rational grounds and look at lots of information, but emotional grounds too. Do I like it? And frankly, as far as information is concerned, then human beings aren't going to be able to stay awake for that much longer, reading all these reviews and everything else.
But new products are looking for clever... but you wouldn't deny that new products, startups and so forth, that don't have huge budgets for brand building, will turn to the internet, and you're actually going to have to devise a different way of displaying a brand.
Absolutely, because you don't need a huge advertising budget anymore. It's absolutely true. But what branding is these days, it's not just, you know, something you stick on a product and advertise. This is about everything you do and make and say in a business. So, for example, you need to make sure that your people understand what they're doing, what your brand is about, so they can serve people in the right way. It's not just about the product itself.
But is there a danger that actually we're going to have a narrowing of choice then? Because what happens is your arch blogger or your expert or your go compare sites on whatever things are going to narrow what people want, which then won't be such a good deal for the consumer because the price will go up.
Well, we won't see a narrowing because, frankly, there's always innovation. I mean, that's one of the powers of having, you know, strong brands, and also you have such competition that it forces companies to keep on innovating, keep on improving their products. So the way to generate long-term sustainable value is to create a brand. Products come and go, people die, but brands are what lives on, and that's why, you know, out of the top 50 brands, they've been up there for 50 years
Rita,
or more.
Thank you very much indeed. We probably need a new brand of line to get us to America, but that's all we have time for tonight. Jeremy is back on Monday. Till then, have a good weekend. Good night.